From marching cavalry straight into German tanks to sending elite jungle troops to rot from disease they were warned about, to a general that totally forgot the very winning strategy he engineered himself, we track down the exact dates, units, and casualty numbers behind every repeat. This is how these World War II generals kept making the exact same deadly mistake. And spoiler, while some just got fired for it, others watched entire armies get slaughtered. Charles H. Corlett. Charles H. Corlett was a U.S. Army Major General who commanded the 7th Infantry Division in the Pacific and later the 19th Corps in Northwest Europe. And he was one of the few who abandoned the very tactical lessons he had successfully pioneered, resulting in blind frontal assaults into fortified terrain, only to repeat the same exact mistakes months later again. On January 31st, 1944, during the landing phases of Operation Flintlock on Kwajalein Atoll, Corlett successfully mastered amphibious tactics by using heavy pre-landing naval bombardments and specialized armored tractors. However, following his transfer to the European theater to crack the Siegfried Line, Corlett completely failed to apply his own hard-won knowledge. In October 1944, during the opening assaults against the West Wall pillboxes near Pallenberg, Corlett ordered standard, unassisted infantry pushes directly into concrete fortifications. He deliberately ignored tactical field reports from his own regiment commanders, detailing how General Friedrich Casper's 183rd Volksgrenadier Division was utilizing interlocking machine gun crossfire from reinforced bunkers. His complete blindness to the necessity of heavy support meant he was sending his underprotected troops directly into a meat grinder landscape. He firmly believed that standard infantry aggression could breach the concrete wall, flatly refusing to coordinate specialized heavy armor or massive artillery prep. As a direct result, his leading battalions hit a wall of pre-registered steel, suffering 1,000 casualties on the very first day. You would think a bloody repulse against concrete pillboxes would force an immediate tactical course correction, but that is definitely not what happened here. In November 1944, during the grueling push toward the Roer River, Corlett faced the heavily fortified town of Jülich. He once more confidently predicted a rapid breakthrough by launching aggressive infantry pushes directly into the center of the German urban defense. Corlett again deliberately ignored intelligence briefings detailing deep, interconnected bunker systems built into the brick cellars and local industrial structures. Instead of arranging systematic heavy air and artillery demolition, he dug in his heels and ordered direct infantry charges that his officers openly called suicidal. He again firmly believed raw aggression could overcome fortified positions without specialized coordination, stubbornly refusing to adjust his rigid timetables. This exact repetition of blind frontal pushes into fortified kill zones ensured that his men were driven straight into an industrial slaughterhouse. The dug-in German forces easily picked off the advancing troops, stretching the local operation into weeks of brutal, high-casualty stalemate. Corlett's toxic relationship with his superiors and his declining health led to an explosive argument with General Omar Bradley. He was relieved of command in November 1944 and reassigned to domestic training duties, dying in New Mexico on March 8, 1971. Joseph Stilwell. Joseph Stilwell was a U.S. Army general who served as the commander of all American forces in the China-Burma-India theater. But he was about to launch a blind infantry offensive that would butcher his elite units in the jungle, only to copy and paste the exact same mistake months later while ignoring his allies' warnings. In March 1942, during the first Allied campaign in Burma, Stilwell was tasked with halting the rapid advance of the Imperial Japanese Army. He confidently asserted to Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek that aggressive infantry maneuvers could easily drive the invaders back across the Salween River. Stilwell deliberately ignored intelligence reports from British General Harold Alexander, detailing how Lieutenant General Shojiro Ida's 15th Army was utilizing superior jungle mobility and cutting off major logistical roads. His complete blindness to reality meant he was sending his undersupplied troops directly into an unmapped green hell. He firmly believed that raw offensive determination could overcome any supply deficit, flatly refusing to establish defensive lines or secure his rear communication links. As a direct result, the Japanese easily outflanked his units, forcing Stilwell to lead a chaotic 140-mile-foot retreat out of Burma, which completely shattered the Chinese 5th and 6th armies. After that, most commanders would seriously reconsider their choices, but not Stilwell. In February 1944, Stilwell launched a massive counteroffensive to recapture northern Burma and secure the vital Ledo Road supply line. He once more predicted a quick victory by launching aggressive infantry pushes directly into the dense, malaria-ridden wilderness around Myitkyina. Stilwell again deliberately ignored intelligence reports from Brigadier General Frank Merrill, detailing how Japanese forces were heavily dug into concealed, fortified bunker networks. Instead of arranging heavy air support, he dug in his heels and ordered direct infantry charges that his officers openly called suicidal. He again firmly believed raw aggression could overcome a total lack of heavy artillery and medical support, stubbornly refusing to rotate the disease-ridden survivors of Merrill's marauders out of combat out of sheer personal spite. This exact repetition of ignoring jungle logistics ensured that his premier elite strike force was driven straight into a medical and tactical slaughterhouse. The operation dragged on for 6 grueling months, resulting in an astounding 80% illness rate that effectively annihilated the entire unit. Stilwell was recalled from the theater in October 1944, following a toxic political clash with Chiang Kai-shek. Reassigned to domestic administrative posts, he died of stomach cancer on October 12, 1946. Ernst Busch. Ernst Busch was a German colonel general who commanded the 16th Army and Army Group Center. But Busch was about to commit a fatal operational sin that would doom an entire army to a frozen graveyard, only to repeat the exact same tactical heresy years later and liquidate his entire theater of war. On January 7, 1942, during the Soviet winter counteroffensive, Busch rigidly enforced Hitler's hold at all costs order. He ordered General Walter von Brockdorff-Ahlefeldt's Second Corps to dig into positions, ignoring Luftwaffe reports detailing an envelopment by General Pavel Kurochkin's Soviet Northwestern Front. Busch believed traditional resolve could break any mechanized assault, refusing to withdraw while the Valdai corridor was open. His blind arrogance was about to transform a minor frontline ripple into an absolute slaughterhouse that his men could see coming from miles away. Consequently, Soviet armies bypassed his flanks, trapping 100,000 German soldiers inside the Demyansk pocket. This adherence to a broken doctrine cost 24,300 casualties and forced the Luftwaffe to fly 100 daily supply missions. Disasters of this scale would usually force any decent commander to adapt, but what happened here is something unbelievable. On June 22, 1944, commanding Army Group Center, Busch faced Operation Bagration, a massive offensive directed by Soviet marshals Georgy Zhukov and Alexander Vasilevsky. He once more rigidly enforced Hitler's order by demanding General Georg Hans Reinhardt's 3rd Panzer Army and General Hans Jordan's 9th Army lock themselves inside fortified places like Vitebsk and Bobruisk. Busch again ignored reports from Colonel Peter von der Gruben detailing deep pincer maneuvers executed by 4 Soviet fronts. Instead of pulling back, he dug in his heels and waited for a disaster his own officers begged him to avoid. He again believed static fortifications could break a mechanized assault, refusing Jordan's pleas to withdraw to the Berezina line. This textbook repetition of his past failure invited a mechanical execution so predictable that the Red Army annihilated his forces before his headquarters even realized the front had dissolved. The Soviets bypassed these cities, liquidating 28 divisions and inflicting 400,000 casualties. Busch was stripped of command on June 28, 1944. Reassigned to Army Group Northwest on March 20, 1945, he surrendered to Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery on May 4th. He later died in an English prisoner camp on July 17, 1945. William Rupertus. William Rupertus was a Marine Corps Major General who commanded the 1st Marine Division in the Pacific, but Rupertus was about to unleash a rigid frontal infantry doctrine that would turn a vital beachhead into an absolute meat grinder, only to stubbornly execute the exact same tactical blindness weeks later while his men paid for his ego in blood. On September 15, 1944, during the landings of Operation Stalemate II on Peleliu, Rupertus was tasked with seizing a heavily fortified airfield. He confidently asserted to Major General Roy Geiger that the assault would be over in 4 days. Rupertus ignored intelligence briefings from Brigadier General O.P. Smith, detailing how Colonel Kunio Nakagawa had hidden 11,000 troops inside 500 interconnected cave networks. His blind spot for modern defense tactics meant he was blindly leading his troops straight into an invisible trap. He flatly refused to adjust his operational schedules. As a result, the 1st Marine Regiment slammed into a wall of crossfire, suffering a staggering 1,500 casualties on day 1. Anyone would think losing his premier battalions to subterranean fortifications would make a leader change his plan, but he decided to do the exact same stupid thing again. By September 21, 1944, as the battle dragged into its 2nd week, Rupertus faced the heavily fortified interior high ground of the island. He once more predicted a breakthrough by launching aggressive infantry pushes directly into the mountain. Rupertus again ignored briefings from O.P. Smith detailing deep cave networks built into the jagged ridges. Instead of pulling back, he dug in his heels and waited for a disaster his own officers begged him to avoid. He stubbornly refused to utilize naval artillery or request reinforcements from the Army's 81st Infantry Division out of Branch Hubris. By copying his worst mistake, he sent his own soldiers right back into a firing squad. The Japanese forces easily picked off advancing Marines from invisible bunker networks, stretching the operation into a horrific 73-day war of attrition, costing 6,500 Marine casualties. Rupertus was removed from command in November 1944, dying of a heart attack in March 1945. Semyon Budyonny. Semyon Budyonny was a marshal of the Soviet Union who commanded the southwest direction during the German invasion, but Budyonny was about to use a broken defense plan that would trap his men in a massive pocket, and then he would run the exact same terrible play over and over again. On August 2nd, 1941, during the Battle of Uman, Budyonny was tasked with holding the southern lines against the Wehrmacht. He confidently asserted to Joseph Stalin that his massed infantry and traditional horse cavalry could easily shatter the German front line within days. Budyonny deliberately ignored intelligence briefings from his own reconnaissance pilots detailing how General Ewald von Kleist's 1st Panzer Group was executing rapid, deep-armored pincer maneuvers. His blind spot for modern machines meant he was leading his troops straight into an invisible trap. He firmly believed that traditional cavalry speed could overwhelm mechanized tanks, flatly refusing to adjust his rigid schedules. As a direct result, the southern front slammed into a wall of tank fire, suffering 100,000 casualties in the very first week. This refusal to recognize the shift to blitzkrieg decimated his vanguard battalions. Anyone would think losing an entire army to mechanized armor would make a leader change his plan, but he decided to do the exact same stupid thing again. In September 1941, Budyonny faced a massive threat to the vital city of Kiev. He once more predicted victory by launching static infantry formations directly into the center of the German line. Budyonny again ignored briefings from General Mikhail Kirponos detailing fast panzer spearheads cutting into his flanks. Instead of pulling back, he dug in his heels and waited for a disaster his own officers begged him to avoid. He again firmly believed cavalry could halt tanks, stubbornly refusing to request a strategic withdrawal from Stalin. By copying his worst mistake, he sent his own soldiers right back into a firing squad. The panzers linked up, creating the largest military encirclement in history, costing 600,000 Soviet casualties. Budyonny was removed from combat command in September 1941 and reassigned to non-combat training roles. He never held a frontline command again, dying in October 1973. Hugo Sperl. Hugo Sperle was a German Luftwaffe field marshal who commanded Air Fleet 3 during the pivotal air campaigns over Western Europe. But Sperle was about to unleash a rigid bombing campaign that would destroy his premier air fleets against hidden defenses, only to execute the exact same tactical blindness years later while the enemy systematically liquidated his commands. On August 13, 1940, during the opening phase of Eagle Day in the Battle of Britain, Sperle was tasked with destroying the British Royal Air Force. He confidently asserted to Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring that massive, concentrated daytime bomber formations could completely wipe out British fighter strength within days. Sperle deliberately ignored intelligence reports from his own wireless intercept units detailing how Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding's fighter command was utilizing a highly integrated, radar-directed chain-home network. His complete refusal to understand British technological advantages meant he was sending his pilots directly into an invisible defensive trap. He firmly believed that sheer numbers and daylight tactical aggressiveness could overwhelm any aerial defense system, flatly refusing to alter his rigid flight patterns. As a direct result, British Spitfires and Hurricanes easily intercepted his unescorted Dornier and Heinkel bombers, causing the Luftwaffe to suffer an unsustainable 75 aircraft losses in a matter of days. You would think watching his elite aircrews get systematically blown out of the sky would force a major tactical overhaul. Instead, he repeated this exact same daytime obsession while the enemy aircraft grew even deadlier. In February 1944, during the intensive Allied aerial onslaught known as Big Week, Sperle was tasked with defending the western borders of the Reich against massed American bomber formations. He once more predicted a defensive victory by launching aggressive daytime fighter interceptions directly into the path of the incoming enemy streams. Sperle again deliberately ignored intelligence reports from his radar stations, detailing how Major General Jimmy Doolittle's 8th Air Force had deployed hundreds of long-range P-51 Mustang escort fighters. Instead of holding his planes back for localized night operations, he dug in his heels and ordered direct frontal attacks that his pilots openly feared. He again firmly believed that traditional fighter aggression could shatter the enemy formations, stubbornly refusing to adapt to the reality of Allied numbers. This exact repetition of launching predictable daytime intercept flights ensured that his remaining air defense units were driven straight into an industrial slaughterhouse. American escorts easily hunted down his fighters, destroying 300 German aircraft in a single week and permanently ending Luftwaffe dominance. Speerle was completely stripped of his command in August 1944 and spent the remainder of the war on the inactive list. Captured by the Allies in 1945, he was acquitted of war crimes at Nuremberg and died in Munich on April 2, 1953.